Good evening, friends. I'd like to welcome you to What's in Tegan's Storage Locker. It's the show that dares to ask the question, just what is in my storage locker? The answer today, well, friend, the answer is comics. I grab comics, we look through them on the camera. That's the drill. If you like this show, if you like any of my shows, please think about checking out the Patreon. There's tons of stuff there for you to download. I put up tons of videos on this channel and elsewhere. There's tons of me for you to check out. Anyway, when I was looking through the bins today, this one grabbed my eye. Because I don't remember anything about it, and I don't think it says one of three. Okay, Predator versus Judge Dredd by Wagner and Alcatena. Yeah, okay, with a Brian Bolland cover, no less. This is a comic book that you would probably want to pick up if you saw it in a box somewhere. With this creative team, definitely. But I don't think I got the rest of it. I still bought comics at the gas stations and supermarkets when I saw them, considering that the first part of their career as a publisher was definitely a creature of the direct market. It is notable that Dark Horse did have a presence. In the last days of the American newsstand, they were putting out these licensed comics that generally had good production values, excellent creators, stuff that could pass the flip test from a passerby, because they sure publish lots of Predator comics. They still publish Predator comics, and they still publish Judge Dredd, but not in America. They did for a brief period, though. DC published some Judge Dredd comic books with interesting creators, people that you would recognize, like Michael Avon Oeming. J.H. Williams III did some, I know. Anyway, as I was saying, before I was so rudely interrupted by rascality, improbably, there were some Judge Dredd comics published on the American newsstand. Not many, but I think this one was, but I don't think I found the second or the third issue. Judge Dredd had a tiny presence on the American newsstand in the 90s, but this is the type of comic that people with, well, no real interest in either character on a regular basis would pick up just based on the fact that it's being written by John Wagner and drawn by Alcatena, who did a fair amount of work in the 90s. Good stuff that shows up in surprising places, because he just said yes to whatever weird old thing, they wanted him to do. Like, you want to come draw the Predator with the guy who co-created Judge Dredd? Okay, I can do that. And he did. And it looks fantastic. It's great. This is fantastic. Alcatena, drawing Mega City 1. Yes. Yes. Okay, we are off to a good start here. I want to find the rest of this. Well, someone is just feeling himself. As I was saying, listen to any people who know Judge Dredd a lot better than I do. I've read some Judge Dredd. I've not read anywhere near all the Judge Dredd. Listen to the people who know the character better, and they'll tell you some of his most beloved stories from every era are the result of selective misreadings of the character. Because taken literally, it's such a restrictive remit. And sometimes, the necessities of genre will dictate that occasionally he gets cast as a hero against an actual monster. Hero in scare quotes, of course. But, I think Judge Dredd could probably do pretty good against a Predator. And we got 3 issues to see for him to prove it. What does it have to do with the character's core thema? I don't know. They got the guy who co-created Judge Dredd to write it, so the story at least works properly. Because, yeah, it's not a lot of nonsense here. This is the first issue of a comic called Predator vs. Judge Dredd, and you already got the two facing off, about to kill each other. And then the Predator lands a spear in Dredd's shoulder, caught like a damn fish. Got a slight problem here. Yep, there you go. Yeah, so Dredd gets wrecked by the Predator. He survives, it looks like. But he tries to go hand to hand here with a pipe of some kind as a staff. And, you know, Judge Dredd is a lot of things, but he's not like a great Batman level hand-to-hand fighter. So he kind of gets wrecked. And, you know, getting wrecked is something you can get over fairly quickly. In, you know, the Judge Dredd universe, you wake up in a pod and things feel a little better. So he gets out of the pod, and basically they tell him, yeah, Predators out there hunting judges, tearing their spines out. That's his reaction to that. Oh yeah, getting their spines torn out. That'll get you 50 years in the ISO cubes. And it's, you know, just straight up. Judge Dredd and all the judges, they very quickly comprehend the problem, put all their resources to taking this guy down. So, yeah. There you go. So I don't know. This is I don't know if it's a judge. It's Schaefer. I'm not reading it closely enough. I thought it was Anderson at first, but no, apparently it's some sort of relation to Dutch Schaefer, great-great-grandfather, so there you go. And there's a head and helmet of a judge. All right, there you go. Well, I guess that's one that people are going to want to track down, because I certainly want to track down the other 2 parts of that. First generation PlayStation games. I don't even know what I'm being sold here. Sometimes you'd feel better if you could just shoot every damn thing in sight. My God. Yeah, I forgot this game and this ad. That's a thing. That's a thing. What is this? Oh, I barely remember seeing ads for this. I don't think I've ever seen a copy of it. And I really like Kelly Jones's work. We've looked at it on this show in the past. We will almost certainly look at it again in the future. All right. I found something. I found a real treat for you. Guardians of the Galaxy, #1, from 1990. One of my very favorite comic books. I read this comic book to death. For pretty much the entirety of Jim Valentino's run, Guardians of the Galaxy was my favorite book on the stands. I loved this book. It was excellent. It was everything I wanted out of a comic book in 1990. I was heartbroken when it ended prematurely. The series kept going, and the series was readable for a while afterwards, and then not readable in other parts. But, you know, these characters, these specific characters, They don't really have a lot of mojo under most circumstances. They don't. They just don't. They got decades of track record before and after the early 90s to prove that these Guardians of the Galaxy, this incarnation of the team is not a commercial prospect. It just has never been before, except, oddly enough, it's not like this sold X-Men numbers, but it sold pretty well. It was a strong mid-list performer. It got 5 years. I think it ended with issue 62. That's pretty good by any measure. People really liked the first incarnation of the book. And I've said this before. I'm sorry. I resented Image. I resented Image because I knew, everyone knew, it was public knowledge. Valentino was taken off of Guardians of the Galaxy prematurely. Of all the Image guys, he was thinking, well, I can just keep doing this work. I can keep writing the book. I'd be happy to do that. And no, they didn't want anything to do with that. It ended up being Scorched Earth, the circumstances of which are, documented ad infinitum. But the fact remains, there was no going back. And Jim Valentino never ended up doing, he did a little bit of work like covers and things, but I don't think he's done so much as a single story, whole story, just, various small bits here and there I've seen. But man, he made these characters work. This book was awesome. It was excellent. And it was kind of gimmicky. It was kind of upfront about the fact that the young gentleman insists on being disruptive. In any event, yeah, this book really worked for a little while. And it had a unique gimmick, which could probably only have worked in this period of time, because while it was, on the one hand, a really blatant commercial gimmick, on the other, it was also unique because no one had ever done it before. This is another book set 1,000 years in the future, just like Legion of Superheroes. This book has nothing really to do thematically, conceptually, with what was going on in the Legion. Because I don't want to say never, but Legion of Superheroes doesn't tend to tell a lot of stories about the specific consequences of the world 10 centuries previous, in a way that when you see it done in Guardians of the Galaxy, you see, oh, okay, that's a real easy gimmick, but I'll give you the points because you're actually taking the time to sit down and work through it right. So what is the gimmick? It's seeing what the legacy of all the popular characters from the 20th century would be in the 30th century, which you might think, well, that might be a difficult thing to get a series out of. And yet, not just through the Jim Valentino run, pretty much consistently, the whole run of the book was just spent spinning out stories based on more or less a handful of characters and ideas that we knew would survive from the 20th century. He is losing his mind. Oh, my goodness. So the first issue here, and I'm going to give away the ending of this 34-year-old comic. It deals with them fighting an alien race called the Stark. And the Stark are, you can probably, just by what I've already told you about the high concept pitch of the book, when I say the Stark, you think, oh, okay, there's an alien race that somehow found a cache of Tony Stark's technology. It shot them, pretty far up the ladder of empire, as it were. for an alien race to just get, a bunch of Stark technology like that, turned very belligerent very fast. That's Iron Man's legacy to the universe. What is this? This ad for this game that I don't remember, but looks awesome. Abadox? These screen captures look awesome. Was this game good? This game looks awesome. But I also don't know anything really about Milton Bradley's video game division. That's not a part of the video game industry that's stuck around, I don't think. So, these are your guys. These guys have been around for decades. By 1990, these guys first appeared in, I think, 1969. I want to say 69 or 70 in Marvel Superheroes. And at the very beginning, it was only a 4-man team. Charlie 27, Martinix, Yondu, who you might recognize a little bit, and Vance Astro, Major Victory, also known as Vance Astrovic of the New Warriors. And then there were these 2 additional characters who had joined in the subsequent run. They had a couple small runs, and they were people who showed up in like Marvel 2-in-1 a few times. Avengers, they were actually, I think, all honorary Avengers because of their service during the fight against Korvac. So they were supporting characters in the Avengers in a very well, regarded period of that book. So it's not like no one knows who these guys are, but at the same time, I am aware that many, 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 many more people know the New Guardians. And that's just, there's no ambiguity about that at all. The Guardians of the Galaxy is a talking raccoon and a tree and a dumb guy. And that's not these guys. So, they're fighting this weapons battery on a distant moon. They demolish it, so, they get to look cool for the first couple pages of their own comic book. But then it turns out that, hey, maybe like this weapons battery that we destroyed, maybe it belongs to someone. Maybe those people, whoever they may be, are going to come looking for it. And it turns out, oh, hey, there's this guy, Taserface. Just bathe in that. Taserface. Codename Viper. That one doesn't look like it stuck around in any capacity, did it? Or was this guy later part of the Metal Gear series? I don't know. So, why were they fighting these weapons? I guess because they were visiting this planet with these Korgans. That's Korg. That's the name of this planet and the name of this people here. So they get belligerent. They come after him with a knife. Yondu messes with that guy. This Yondu has a completely different temperament. He is stoic, religious, doesn't trust technology. In fact, faith is a theme throughout the series because what he goes through, what he sees with the Guardians changes his relation to his religion. And that, I'm sure this doesn't look, just on the face of it, like a comic that's going to have these amazingly deep, long-term subplots. And yet this right here, this storyline between Starhawk and his wife Alita, who share the same body. This is an excellent story, years ahead of its time, really, because it's basically a portrait of a slow-motion divorce. Irreconcilable differences on the part of these two people who just do not like each other but cannot be separated because they kind of have something similar to, the old Captain Marvel or, the Firestorm dynamic, only it's a husband and a wife who can't stand each other. And she eventually ends up looking around. All, very interesting long-term subplotting that may not be apparent in one issue or even two issues. But let me tell you something, after you read 15 of them in a row, you see, oh, yeah. Building steam with a grain of salt, very slowly. And even these characters, they had one of those on-again, off-again relationships of flirtation where neither of them really took it too serious, and then that dynamic gets changed as well. So yeah, this is a book that puts its characters through the ringer. Martin X, he almost dies. He undergoes a whole physical transformation because the gimmick for these future characters is these two, Charlie 27 and Martin X, they're genetically engineered future people who lived on different planets in the solar system. So Charlie 27, he's strong and dense because he grew up flying around the moons of Jupiter. Martin X, he's from a Plutonian colony. Yondu, he's from Alpha Centauri, so he's from another solar system entirely. He's not human. But Vance Astro, he is from the 20th century. And you're like, wait a minute. That's like 4 really great high concepts right there. Yeah, that's the core of the classic team right there. But they don't just come together as a social club. No, I'm going to point out the Double Dragon 2 ad here. I can't even remember. Maybe I rented this once. But the thing is that my parents, they just didn't care for martial arts stuff. So, maybe I wouldn't have brought that one home. I don't know. So this is a recapping, which was great. This was fantastic. I love this. When they did this back in the day, where they just take a few issues, or take a few pages out of the first issue, just to tell you what these characters have been through before. Hey, they teamed up with Captain America and the Thing. Okay, so they know these guys. I know these guys. They've met the Defenders. By 1990, no one really knew who the Defenders were anymore. But there was the Hulk. There's Doctor Strange. And then that's when you meet Nikki. And you're fighting the Badoon here. Where are the Badoon? There's the Badoon. They're from the early run of the Stanley Silver Surfer. They're lizard men who want to take over the Earth. That's what they do. And the hook behind the Guardians of the Galaxy future is not that it was an idyllic utopia. On the opposite, on the contrary, Earth has been conquered twice, because first the Martians did it, and then the Badoons did it 1,000 years later. So Earth has been through it, and how the Guardians come together, like I say, is they're freedom fighters. It's not that different from the Micronauts setup. Instead of Baron Cars, you got the Badoon, but it's 1,000-year-old guy and some people with weird genes. There you go. And this is their big claim to fame, which was that their arch nemesis was this guy Korvac, who they fought with Thor and then fought later on with the Avengers. The Korvac saga, which they have still never so much as a mention of them doing that one in the movies. It's a weird one. To do it right, it's kind of an anticlimax. I don't know how people would accept that anticlimax, especially since Endgame sort of did it. But then this is explaining the connection to this character, Marvel Boy. He was going by Marvel Boy at the time. He does not go by Marvel Boy anymore. What does he? Does he still go by Justice? He appeared in the Champions book. He had nothing to do with Krakoa. He was working for the federal government when Krakoa happened, so Vance Astro didn't get to be a part of that. Also, because none of the people involved with Krakoa wanted to deal with his noise. But they're telling you that the reason why the character can appear essentially in two different comics at the same time is because the time stream was split when the two Vance Astrovics met each other in an issue of Marvel Team Up. Or not, Marvel 2-in-1, sorry, because the Thing was there. And Starhawk was also on hand when Her tried to raise Adam Warlock from the grave. Spider-Man showed up, Marvel 2-in-1, Marvel Team Up, there you go. That's about where the character's level was. So them coming back and having a really good early 90s is not necessarily something that was written in stone. And yet, straight up, my understanding is that Jim Valentino just walked through the door with a really good pitch. And straight up, it created a saleable brand in a time when Marvel could definitely sell a book like this. It was just, hey, these guys, they're Iron Man in the future. What's the first arc of the book? They're going after Captain America's shield. What do they do after that? Well, they meet the Ghost Rider of the future. They meet the Wolverine of the future. You get the idea. They meet the Punishers of the future. And after a while, you're of two minds about it because you think, well, this is the heart of the book. Every new arc, you're getting to find out, oh, how did Spider-Man die? They get to it. That's not a Jim Valentino one. They get to that way down the line. And you find out, oh, Spider-Man died on Mars. I believe, if I recall correctly, Spider-Man died on Mars in their universe. And you find that out eventually. And Doctor Doom is still alive. Doctor Doom has Wolverine's skeleton. He's living in Wolverine's skeleton. Yeah, see, they just start spinning it out. And frankly, like the Wolverine's granddaughter character, Rancor, she was great. They could bring her back anytime. They probably will bring her back at some point because she's Wolverine's evil granddaughter. Like, there you go. You hear the idea and you know in your heart of heart, oh yeah, I'll be seeing that again at some point. So they fight Taserface. He's still got his Yaka arrows, which, excellent gimmick. He whistles and they go nuts. Oh, man. One of the great performance art pieces of the early 20th century is Warren Beatty's spiteful clutching of the Dick Tracy license for no good reason. And I think it's really, to be fair, it meant no one did a bad adaptation of the character when everyone was doing bad adaptations for a while there. So Dick Tracy got off relatively clean as far as that goes. But at the same time, he still hasn't had a movie or a cartoon or anything. So, I don't know. I don't know how much juice Dick Tracy has left in the tank anyway. It's kind of a hard reactionary law enforcement fantasy. If you do it right, if you do it the way Chester Gold wanted, there's a body count. So you see, lots of fights, lots of Silver Age action, people flying really excitedly, getting zapped because there is a reason why I am called Taserface. Zrap, there you go. Is it the best idea in the world? No. Are you going to remember it until the day you die? Probably. And look at this. Spaceships, color hole planets. Oh, this is fantastic. Just give me a comic book where people are flying around space. And I'm purring like a kitten, I tell you. That's all I want to see. That's all I need to see at the end of the day. So yeah, they're realizing, okay, maybe this guy's related to that fight we had earlier in the issue. They turn around to see it's the Stark. So there you go. By the end of the first issue, you already have your gimmick. You're going to be seeing new spins, future spins on familiar 20th century faces, and that keeps the book on the gravy train. It was mid-list, don't get me wrong, but it was solidly mid-list. in an era when the midlist was still selling hundreds of thousands of copies every month. So, yeah, nice work if you can get it. And then he went and did Shadowhawk. I've still never read Shadowhawk. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I love this book so dearly. It was my favorite for just about every month that it hit the stands. And you even have a nice series of text pieces in the first stretch of the book where Jim Valentino is elaborating on what he's already shown you on a couple pages of the book. He's giving you this, slightly more extended pocket history of just who these guys are. Because in 1990, these guys hadn't been around for a while. Marvel 2-in-1, Marvel Team Up, the type of books where, C-list could show up occasionally. They weren't on the stands by 1990. So this was kind of a shot in the dark, but it worked. Now, sadly, of course, the book didn't leave much of a footprint. This version of the book, it had to be retooled from scratch to be made something of. That is a fact. But many important things at Marvel did not survive the mid-90s. This is an iteration of the Guardians of the Galaxy is another. Just like Epic Comics, Marvel UK, Marvel's relationship with Sergio Aragonés just did not survive bankruptcy. It never really has since. But I still love these versions of the characters. They're great. They're great. After Jim Valentino, it's readable. The parts with Doctor Doom are fun. But if you want the real sauce, you want Jim Valentino on Guardians of the Galaxy. This book right here. You want this in your life. It's good stuff. And it's overshadowed. It's obviously overshadowed. Don't let it be overshadowed, because it was my favorite book. I liked Todd McFarlane just fine. But I loved Guardians of the Galaxy. I know it wasn't the only one because the book had a sizable following. All right. Here's a more recent Michael Allred. I don't have a full run of this. This is the Bug series that he did with Young Animal. And pretty much the entire life of Young Animal. It was only a couple years because it was the entirety of when I was sort of on sabbatical, dealing with life and getting a breather from the comics industry. I remember reading the first few issues of the Gerard Way Doom Patrol. I don't know how that run ends. I want to catch up with it one of these days. But after that, everything else in the line, I just haven't even read. So I picked up a few issues. I found a few issues of this in a bin somewhere. So no idea what's going on. It's a Bug story. He's a tertiary character in Jack Kirby's Fourth World. Interesting visual. He was in all of, 2, 3, 4 stories in the original New Gods. That book zipped around a bit. Just not a really, he's part of a really well-developed setting, but as a character, definitely, yeah, all right. There's room for someone like Lee, Michael, and Laura Allred. So I guess it's an all Allred extravaganza. There's room for the Allreds to come in and just do something. The only non-Allred on that masthead is Nate Picos of Blambot lettering. Munchkin. Steve Jackson Games. They were putting a few ads in comics for a while there, and then it seemed like that didn't last. So, yeah, we start with our hero falling into a hay bale. All right, so this, he's getting sneezed on by a yak. All right, well, we are clearly in the Allred family, collective unconscious here. Oh, and it's that guy. It's Atlas. This is another Kirby guy who has no relation, I don't think, unless he was given some later. He has no relation to the Fourth World. He's been used sparingly. Kurt Busiek used him in his Superman. I think he's shown up for a couple other things. But basically, he's a really kind of generic dude. Mythic theme. Kirby did one issue of him in the first issue special when he was out the door at DC. So to say the guy is undeveloped, really putting it mildly. But like I say, he's been used a tiny bit since then. And apparently he's here to try to kill Bug. You know, interestingly, I think if you want to talk about what Allred takes from Kirby specifically, I don't think it's necessarily the later Kirby. I don't think it's the 70s Kirby. Visually, he seems more of a student of the early to mid 60s, when the heroes still kind of had ropey physiologies. What I think of as a very depressed period in the history of a lot of men's lives, and you can sort of see in the comics they produce. So, yeah, Bug is wandering around with this little girl who looks like something out of specifically a Japanese horror movie, because it's a haunted little girl with some sort of talking teddy bear. Oh, it's, is this, oh, what's that guy? He's the teddy bear. What's his name? I've even seen the teddy bear movie. What's that man's name? No, don't sit on the... What was that man's name? Was it just Ted? Was that the name of that? It was probably just Ted, wasn't it? He's also using a computer now, and you can see, and just... I think he must be using a computer, I assume, because I can tell Laura is using a computer as well. You never really see her coloring stuff besides him. I think it's happened a couple times, but only a couple times. I think that's a missed opportunity because she's an excellent colorist. In some ways, more of an influential colorist than even he was as an artist. As an artist, you know, I think of Mike Allred as kind of a stealth popularizer of Daniel Clowes. I don't necessarily know if that's a connection a lot of people have made, but there's always struck me as a deep kinship there, because you go back and look at the early Madman stuff, not my favorite character, but clearly he's someone who was following Clowes closely and building on that in a more explicitly genre context. Oh, it's a TV ad. What is this? Animal Kingdom? Is this is it a reality TV show? Is it a law enforcement thing? Is it a crime story? It could have lasted for 150 episodes. I've never heard of it. So, yeah. We're walking around trippy crystalline environments, strange glass caves. There's Desaad chilling out, looks like. Yeah, I think that's Desaad. Chagra. Negative boom tube. Okay, negative boom tubes are cool. Did they take you to the Phantom Zone? I'd probably find out if I read the comic. Looks cool. No idea what's going on. Still have to track down the rest of it. What was that? Did I miss something here? Oh, it's a DCBS ad. Don't see those anymore. Midnight in the Phantom Zone by James Harvey. Oh, so it's a... Well, see, Young Animal did interesting things. It's a page strip for this Midnight character who was a Jack Cole character that no one remembers. Oh, man. Oh, man, this looks good. Yeah, well, everything I've seen from the imprint looked high quality. Maybe they could come back and do more of it, because you look back and in hindsight, it really sticks out like, oh yeah, you want comics like that to buy at the comic book store. That's something you want to own, to see in a pamphlet, interesting to look at. And you even get a Who's Who page with the writers for this Cave Carson book that had, who did the art for this? That was Von Oming, wasn't it? Yeah, Von Oming. With Gerard Way and John Rivera doing the first volume of Cave Carson. Which I have no idea what that book is about. I can speculate based on the promo art I've seen. I need to track it down. But like I say, I was taking a breather from the world of comics. I wasn't even keeping up with Rogue. I was gone. I was out of comics for her marriage. It's a damn good thing that I was. It is a damn good thing that I was. Now it's just... Okay, I'm not just randomly bringing up Rogue. Okay. Oh, Conan O'Brien. Comic-Con. That seems a very 2017 impulse right there. So I guess they've been doing it for a year at this point. All right. So I don't know how long it lasted. 2 years? They could come back and do more. I'd be fine with that. I haven't read everything that they did, but I've liked everything that I've seen. All right. We got a few more minutes. Let's look through some garbage I bought out of the quarter box. Not a book that I think people have probably paid a lot of attention to in the years since it was published. You know, you can probably still find these everywhere. Chris Claremont, Jim Lee. Do you remember Jim Lee? Yeah, that's how long ago this was. He hasn't drawn a comic in a long time. No one remembers who that guy is. Battletoads. Battletoads was a crime. Selling children a video game that they could never win. There should have been congressional hearings about the difficulty of the jet ski levels on Battletoads. Oh, Jesus. You can see why this book was close to cancellation. I mean, not even professional, really, when you get down to it. You blame the editor. Who's the editor here? Bob Harris. You blame the editor when things get this bad. There's no other way to put it. He hung these creators out to dry. That's just not professional work. It just isn't. Ooh, baseball cards. Ken Griffey Jr. I know who that is. Tom Glavine. I think I know who that is because I've seen his name in old baseball card ads. Seemed like, kids were really starting to get into basketball by the early 90s. That was the NBA's real salad days with the youth of America. Baseball was sort of in eclipse a bit. Football was, kind of evergreen, but... Oh, man. Well, TSR. didn't miss a bet. See, this is why, I look from the outside in as someone who isn't really into role-playing at all, but understands the history of the company TSR, because role-playing grew up alongside, very closely aligned with the comic book industry, almost symbiotically linked in a few corridors. And you can see it's a completely different organism. TSR used to publish lots and lots of games, different kinds of games. They made inroads into different markets. They published things. They sank or swim based upon their ability to create. Is that what you associate with TSR in 2024? Like I say, on the outside looking in, Dungeons and Dragons fans, people who love that IP, who love those settings and have affection for that brand, man, I'm sorry. It is rough. Almost as rough as, Marvel. This is what Marvel looked like in 1990. They had absolutely no shame whatsoever. Just stealing money from children with, Look at this. This is terrible. Oh, The Rocketeer. I need to rewatch that. I actually have not seen The Rocketeer since watching it on VHS when it first came out. I wasn't the type to rewatch movies. When I was very young, yes, but then I'd outgrown rewatching movies to death by the time The Rocketeer came around. So I saw it once, liked it okay. Didn't really make any big impact on me like it did with some people. But obviously, not enough. But, on the other hand, look down that alternate universe where The Rocketeer really takes off. They make sequels. They make a lot more comic books. Do you think the character's better off in that universe? I don't know. He may very well be. If he's had 8 movies to his name and 2 long-running cartoon shows. But, no one is going to be making a movie out of the X-Men anytime soon. What do I say? TSR. Which Dungeons and Dragons was this? Or was this not an edition number? Because I think I had one of this generation Dungeons and Dragons products. Not one of the fancy books, but one of the intro level boxes, and I played it with one friend for like a week. And it was like, oh, playing this with 2 people, you kind of run out of things to do after a week. And that was more or less my Dungeons and Dragons. But I understood that it was a thing that existed healthy alongside the comics industry. And to a degree, it was kind of cannibalized by the CCG market. That did happen historically. And now, of course, if a store has comics, there's a better than even chance they maybe have a few Magic cards, maybe some Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe. I know there are some who don't. But certainly you're more likely to see Magic and D&D than baseball cards, which, baseball cards and comics, they were a huge combo when I was a kid. Not really so much anymore. Now, it's really, if you see cards with hats and other sports memorabilia. They've sort of siloed off to their own thing. They can support their own thing. To be fair, baseball cards, they had their own problems. They didn't have to be saddled to the vicissitudes of the direct market, and they opted very consciously not to be. I'm sure the collapse of the direct market hurt them too, but it was not something that held anywhere near all their eggs. That class of retailer. they had other problems. They had many other problems. So, yeah, I mean, who can even tell what happens in comics like these? Just words pass through your eyes and into your brain. I know who Nolan Ryan is. He kept going. People still know who Nolan Ryan is. I know who he is, and he played for the Rangers. That's how good he was. Oh, when Marvel was doing these 900 numbers, I called into the fan phone. They were offering me hard news. I wasn't going to call into one of these choose your own adventure on a 900 number. So, flying around spaceships, and this man, this absolutely preposterous human being, has a deck of cards, and he goes after this Mohawk fellow with the deck of cards. And we're supposed to believe that anyone with a deck of cards can defeat a man with a Mohawk. No, I mean, I'm sorry, that's just common sense. Oh, I know who Skrulls are, at least. Ugh. Pitiful. They must have, I mean, you know, there was a period where they were publishing a lot. The standards were getting they were just getting kind of lax. There's no other way to put it. When you see work like this, you know, man, I miss the Science Fiction Book Club. I've said it before, they put out really nice omnibus editions of stuff that wasn't published widely in omnibus form. Some stuff that isn't in print now either, I think. Book of Swords. I got a 4-volume omnibus of the Book of the New Sun through here. It's a massive book, but it's, you know, my reading copy of those stories. And it's not something they've ever printed outside of the Science Fiction Book Club, I don't think. Because everywhere you look now, the ones that are in print are the 2-volume ones. But, man, Science Fiction Book Club, I would join it if they had a deal like this today. I'd be there in a hot flash. So, yeah, this man with the preposterous hair, he has knives, and he's being stabbed. Oh, very Freudian. Everyone's being pierced in this comic. Oh, and it's by this very dirty-looking man who stabs him through with a spear. So there's obviously some deep sexual longing being conveyed here through the symbology. And now he's bleeding grape juice? I don't know. It's hard to tell what's going on. When a comic book is this poorly put together, you know, you're fighting for your life, trying to figure out what's going on. I'm just glad I didn't pay very much for this. Like I say, if you have to pay more than a quarter for this, you're getting ripped off. Man, they put a lot of words on the page. It's the Shadow King. And the Shadow King's machinations are being felt even in the other galaxy, whoever that guy is. The Battle of Muir Isle. Do I recognize any of these names? You don't recognize any of these names. So, yeah. I want to say this guy, Claremont, he was off the book soon. Lee, I think they just straight up, this was 77. I think he got fired in another 4 issues. And I don't know what became of the guy. I hope he landed on his feet. That's a decent-sized subscription form. Here's one of these. I think they're Continuity Studios. I want to say they really look like Continuity Studios, these Three Musketeers ads. What was I just saying? The NBA's jamming on Game Boy. All right, so that was fun. We looked at some fun comics. If you like this show, if you like anything I do, please check out the Patreon. I got tons of stuff writing for you to download immediately. I got tons of other videos up on the site. I do videos about old comics. I do videos about new comics. I'm even sporadically, occasionally doing videos about comics with a spine when I feel like it, time permitting. I do a podcast with Claire Napier. It's called Udder Madness. We talk about Top Cow Comics. That's Mark Silvestri, Michael Turner, The Darkness, Witchblade, all that good stuff. We have a lot of fun putting it together. I hope you have a lot of fun listening to it. I do daily comic book reviews on TikTok and Instagram. I have a lot of fun doing them. And I just got a new review posted to the Journal yesterday. They finally put up that Godzilla piece to coincide with the release of the trade. So yes, that's enough. I never feel like I do anything. I always feel like I'm behind the 8 ball. Oh well. Have a wonderful day. Please, take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to the world. All that mushy stuff that I send you off with, because ultimately, that's just the kind of person I am. Have a wonderful day.